Hey, stuffers! If you think the Illuminati is running the world, wait till you meet the guys who taught them how to draw the blueprints. Alex here, and welcome back to Stuff with Alex. Listen up, because we're not starting this deep dive with dusty tomes and vague philosophical musings. We're starting with a bombshell that would make your average 17th century European choke on his porridge. When the Rosicrucian Manifestos first started circulating in Germany between 1610 and 1615, they caused an instant, explosive sensation across the entire continent. This wasn't just a newsletter about finding your inner peace. It was an anonymous, radical declaration of spiritual and political warfare wrapped up in the language of alchemy and mysticism. Europe was already a dumpster fire of religious and political turmoil, but these manifestos, claiming the existence of a secret brotherhood of sages preparing for a universal reformation of mankind, provided a stunning promise of spiritual transformation. What was the shocking twist hidden inside this promised enlightenment? The original fraternity of the Rosenkreutz, the alleged founders of this great hidden movement, didn't just disagree with the Roman Catholic establishment, they explicitly and violently denounced it. Their theological opinions, hidden within the philosophical texts, explicitly classified the Pope as the Antichrist. They executed him, a term we don't use enough anymore, and boldly stated their anticipation for the moment when he shall be torn in pieces with nails. I mean, holy smokes, talk about a hostile takeover bid. This elevated the entire Rosicrucian narrative from a quiet esoteric study group to a full-blown, radical, anti-establishment conspiracy. This group wasn't aiming to merely reform religion. They were trying to incite an intellectual revolution fueled by prophetic fury. If that wasn't enough, the ideas contained within these manifestos, the call for a new scientific and political order, were allegedly picked up by the biggest names of the era, notably the philosopher and statesman Sir Francis Bacon. The connection is that Bacon's movement for the advancement of learning aligned with Rosicrucian ideals. They sought to transform arts, sciences, religion, and politics. They didn't just disappear. They planted the seeds that many researchers believe grew into the foundational political and scientific institutions of the entire Western world. The secret society didn't disappear. It evolved, becoming the very blueprint for the modern world we live in today. Let's crack open this secret history. The origins of the Rosicrucian movement are less ancient mystery and more 17th century social media storm. The entire foundation rests on three anonymous publications, known collectively as the Manifestos, which burst onto the scene in early modern Germany. The core question scholars still debate is whether these documents were genuine calls for a new occult order or simply an elaborate intellectual prank that the world took way too seriously. The first and most influential document was Fama Fraternitatis Rosicrucis, the fame of the Brotherhood of the Rosenkreutz, circulated as a manuscript around 1610 and officially published in Kassel in 1614. This text introduced the enigmatic founder, Frater C.R.C. or Christian Rosenkreutz. According to the narrative, Christian Rosenkreutz was a German aristocrat orphaned at the tender age of 4 and subsequently educated in a monastery for 12 years. The story gets spicy when Christian Rosenkreutz sets off on a global journey to acquire secret wisdom. His travels supposedly took him through the Holy Land, northern Africa, and Spain, meeting sages in Damascus, Egypt, and a hidden city in Arabia called Damkar, as well as Fez. After returning, he founded the Fraternity of the Rosenkreutz with 8 members and built a secret temple, the Sanctus Spiritus. The alleged timeline is where things get mathematically convenient, suggesting heavy allegorical intent. The second manifesto indicated Christian Rosenkreutz was born in 1378. He is said to have lived for 106 years, meaning his death occurred in 1484. Crucially, the Fama Fraternitatis claimed that his secret tomb was rediscovered 120 years later, around 1604, by a brother of the order. This precise, almost symbolic 120-year cycle suggested the entire narrative was calculated for maximum impact. In the Kabbalic context, which was familiar to the intellectuals of the era, names, numbers, and details were carefully chosen to signal profound hidden meaning. The 120-year discovery cycle wasn't arbitrary. It signaled a time of destined prophetic revelation, a clear message that the time for the unveiling of this specific wisdom was divinely ordained, regardless of whether Christian Rosenkreutz had ever actually existed. The Rosicrucian phenomenon was launched by 3 core texts, released in quick succession, each escalating the mystery and the promise of transformation. The 3 founding Rosicrucian Manifestos, 1614 to 1616. The publications were a masterclass in 17th-century viral marketing. The texts were anonymous, circulated widely, and guaranteed massive attention by declaring the existence of a benevolent secret brotherhood poised to reshape the intellectual world. The second manifesto, Confessio Fraternitatis, had to be published to manage the ensuing confusion and criticism. The enduring power of this movement lies in the fact that the fraternity was likely non-existent, or at least entirely unreachable. By promoting the idea of an invisible brotherhood, the authors achieved a profound decentralized spread of their philosophy. Since people couldn't actually join a physical order, they were forced to adopt the Rosicrucian philosophy as an intellectual pursuit. This success in generating a movement from an unproven concept is why later historical figures and esoteric societies, from Michael Meyer and Robert Flood to organizations centuries later, could convincingly claim to derive from the original legitimate Rosicrucians. When there is no central headquarters to debunk the claim, every successor is free to claim the mantle. Stuffers, smash that like button if you're already confused by Christian Rosenkreutz's math. Who calculated this? A medieval accountant? If you strip away the claims of ancient tombs and global travel, what were the Rosicrucians actually selling? A highly potent intellectual and spiritual cocktail. Rosicrucianism is fundamentally a spiritual and cultural movement rooted in a synthesis of 3 core elements: alchemy, mysticism, and hermeticism. This framework provided a path for seekers to access esoteric knowledge that had been forbidden in the Middle Ages. At the heart of the movement was the pursuit of gnosis, a special, secret wisdom that revealed the deeper truths and mysteries of life. The Rosicrucian ideal promised a universal reformation of mankind through a science based on these esoteric truths of the ancient past. This was a powerful magnet for intellectuals weary of religious dogma and political stagnation. But the core belief that really matters, especially for modern practitioners, is the shift in alchemical practice. While the tradition includes alchemical knowledge, its ultimate aim was never merely transmuting physical lead into gold. Instead, the focus was on spiritual alchemy, the deep, systematic pursuit of the purification and refinement of the human spirit. This process mirrors the physical alchemist's goal, but applies it internally, seeking to transform the lower self, lead, into the higher, enlightened self, gold. Esoteric concepts in Rosicrucianism. The symbol of the Rose Cross or Rosy Cross is central to this philosophy. It is a powerful diagram of duality and completion. The cross itself, in this context, is claimed by some groups to predate Christianity and symbolically represents the human body and the physical trials and experiences of a thoughtful, mortal life. The rose, centrally positioned, represents the unfolding individual consciousness, the spiritual self. When placed together, they represent the mystical integration required for mastery of life. For many modern orders, this focus on ancient tradition requires reaching far beyond 17th century Germany. The ancient and mystical order Rosicrucians claims its movement has philosophical and traditional roots in the Egyptian mystery traditions dating back as far as 1500 BCE. This claim reveals an essential tactic used by modern esoteric organizations. To maintain credibility and avoid the perception of being a mere fad or a cult, a secret society must anchor itself in deep antiquity. By citing the Gnostic traditions of ancient Egypt, they bypass the historical inconvenience that their founding manifestos are relatively modern and potentially satirical. They transform the movement from a literary phenomenon into a timeless heritage, giving the seeker the spiritual confidence that they are pursuing truths thousands of years in the making. This blend of ancient claims and modern self-help jargon ensures the continued relevance of the tradition. Today's Rosicrucianism appeals to seekers who want genuine spiritual depth and metaphysical exploration, like the illusory nature of time and space and the mystical power of visualization, but packaged without the strict dogma of traditional organized religion. It is essentially a pragmatic spirituality focused on realizing one's highest potential. I tried purifying my spirit this morning, but I accidentally purified the last remaining coffee filter. Mastery of life is going great, guys. Let me know if you've achieved cosmic consciousness this week.
If the Rosicrucians themselves were an invisible brotherhood, their influence was anything but. The real conspiracy theory surrounding the Rosenkreutz centers on the figures they inspired and the institutions those figures created. Chief among them is the brilliant yet politically complex English philosopher and statesman Sir Francis Bacon. Bacon is one of several influential figures, including Isaac Newton and Benjamin Franklin, frequently connected to Rosicrucian ideals. Bacon's most intriguing contribution to this lineage is his utopian novel, The New Atlantis, published posthumously in 1626. This novel depicts a fictional island society, Bensalem, a paradise governed by generosity and enlightenment, dignity and splendor, piety and public spirit. The philosophical core of Bensalem was its highly organized research college known as Salomon's House or Solomon's House. Salomon's House was not merely a fictional library, it was a conceptual blueprint for the future. Its design prefigured the structure and mandate of the modern research university, focusing on both applied and pure sciences. The deeper implication, recognized by many esoteric historians, is that Bacon deliberately portrayed Bensalem as a land ruled by principles derived directly from Rosicrucian ideals. He considered his own intellectual movement, the very foundation of the modern scientific method, to be in conformity with Rosicrucian goals. Bacon's work, therefore, represents the successful secularization of the Rosicrucian vision. The original brotherhood sought a universal reformation of the arts and sciences. Bacon provided the systematic process for achieving it. This leads to a chilling conclusion for conspiracy theorists. The Rosicrucians achieved their revolutionary goals not by leading a revolution, but by infecting the mainstream intellectual framework with their methodology. The scientific method itself, the foundation of modern technology and power, can be viewed as a highly successful, secularized Rosicrucian institution. The legacy of the Rosicrucians flowed directly into other major secret societies, most notably Freemasonry. Bacon's vision of Salomon's House is considered by some to be a foundational blueprint for modern scientific and Masonic organizations. The connection is more than philosophical, it is structural. The principles established in the early 16th century provided the esoteric content that speculative Freemasonry later formalized and popularized. Today, the Rosenkreutz degrees are directly incorporated into the advanced degrees of Freemasonry, ensuring that the ancient pursuit of spiritual alchemy and hidden wisdom remained central to the fraternity's curriculum. For the American audience, this conspiracy narrative hits close to home. Key founding fathers, most notably Benjamin Franklin, who was also a prominent Mason, were associated with Rosicrucian ideas. This reinforces the powerful, persistent conspiracy theory that the early political structures of the United States, its layout of its capital, its governmental structures, and its emphasis on rational, empirical governance, were established upon an esoteric, quasi-Masonic, and ultimately Rosicrucian blueprint derived from Bacon's New Atlantis. The hidden hand didn't disappear, it simply put on an American suit and started printing money. Drop your wildest theory in the comments. Did Bacon secretly design the layout of your town using sacred geometry? Probably.
After 4 centuries, the Rosicrucian current didn't vanish. It fractured, evolving into a complex array of competing organizations, often fighting over who holds the true traditions. While an early Rosicrucian society was established in Pennsylvania in 1694, the true 20th century boom for the Rosicrucians happened in the spiritual hotbed of America, particularly California. The largest and most recognized modern organization is the ancient and mystical order Rosicrucians, better known by its acronym AMORC. It was founded in the United States in 1915 by Harvey Spencer Lewis, 1883 to 1939, who served as its first imperator until his death. Lewis's background is highly relevant. He was an advertising agent and a cultist. This explains the genius of AMORC's success. He took the esoteric concepts from centuries past and transformed them into a commercially viable, globally structured organization. Lewis founded AMORC after a mystical experience in 1908 that convinced him the knowledge he sought could not be found in books, requiring him to travel to France to contact Rosicrucians for initiation. This need for European legitimacy is a classic maneuver, ensuring the American version wasn't seen as merely homegrown. AMORC operates as a fraternal order, offering structured home study lessons on topics like the awakening of psychic consciousness and metaphysical healing. The organization is headquartered in San Jose, California, where it maintains the Rosicrucian Park, which includes a local tourist attraction, the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum. The existence of this physical, organized, and publicly accessible headquarters, along with its focus on mastery of life, shows how Lewis effectively standardized, organized, and marketed mysticism, transforming the chaotic intellectual hoax of the 17th century into a predictable, manageable, and profitable experience for the modern seeker. The AMORC is not the only game in town. The 20th century saw numerous splinter groups and rivals, often highly critical of each other, each claiming superior authenticity. This fragmentation highlights a core element of the movement. The Rosicrucian tradition is now essentially a banner under which diverse, often contradictory systems of belief are grouped. Key modern Rosicrucian organizations. The Rosicrucian Fellowship was established by the Dane Max Heindel around 1909. Unlike AMORC, which uses lodges, Rosicrucian Fellowship organizes itself into churches and resembles more of a religion. Their teachings are heavily influenced by theosophy and anthroposophy, and they mandate the inclusion of astrology. Notably, Heindel later admitted that the fellowship never had any genuine connection to the original Rosicrucian Brethren, emphasizing that for many modern groups, the connection is one of inspiration rather than lineage. Even further to the extreme is the Lectorium Rosicrucian, founded in Holland in 1924. Lectorium Rosicrucian is characteristic for its relatively intense and singular focus, claiming to be the only true Rosicrucian group and demanding total commitment, often forbidding membership in any other orders. The presence of these diverse groups, Egyptian mystics, theosophist astrologers, and aggressive Gnostics, all competing under the same banner, illustrates the movement's identity crisis. The term Rosicrucian no longer denotes a unified philosophical path, but rather a historical gateway, allowing highly distinct systems to claim historical credibility by association. So you've got Egyptian mystics fighting theosophists in California. Who's running the real show? The guys with the most members or the guys who claim the most ancient, definitely not fake lineage?
In the modern era, the influence of the Rosicrucians is often found not in grand political schemes, but in art, literature, and the persistent low hum of conspiracy theory that surrounds any secretive organization. The fundamental nature of a secret society is that its activities, events, and internal functioning are concealed. This concealment, whether for benign fraternal purposes or protection, creates a vacuum of information that the public mind immediately fills with narrative. This is why the mysterious nature of these groups leads to widespread speculation and conspiracy theories about their activities and intentions. The Rosicrucian movement, with its emphasis on alchemy and hidden initiation rites, is ripe for dark speculation. For example, while the larger established orders like AMORC maintain a public presence and focus on self-improvement, the mere existence of esoteric philosophy near the fringes of society inevitably links it to groups that go astray. The Order of the Solar Temple, OST, is a prominent example of a Neo-Templar or occult group that achieved tragic notoriety through mass suicides. The leaders in that case were investigated, and though one key figure, Tabachnik, was acquitted twice in France of any criminal involvement in the suicides, the association lingers in the public mind. The primary scandal is not criminal activity within organizations like AMORC, rather the abuse of ancient ideals by fringe actors, a direct consequence of the inherent secrecy maintained by the tradition. Perhaps the most compelling evidence of Rosicrucianism's lasting cultural impact is its penetration into high art pop culture. The movement's core concept of duality, the constant balancing act between the mundane and the spiritual, the cross and the rose, provides powerful narrative structure for artists. One of the most prominent examples is the American filmmaker David Lynch, who is a public Rosicrucian and intentionally weaves their mythos into his work. His groundbreaking series, Twin Peaks, is built entirely on this esoteric framework. The narrative explores the duality inherent in existence through the opposition of the Black Lodge and the White Lodge. These are direct metaphors for the Gnostic realms of darkness and light, or the lower self and higher consciousness, themes central to the Rosicrucis' search for wisdom. The fact that Lynch and historical literary figures like W.B. Yeats, who saw Rosicrucianism as a call for a new age of imagination and revelation, embraces these ideas and proves that esoteric concepts are still powerful narrative tools. They offer complex archetypal structures that allow artists to delve into truths that conventional media often ignores. The Rosicrucian tradition, while perhaps misdirecting some seekers of wisdom and truth, successfully directs creative minds seeking to build complex, layered worlds. Lynch used Rosicrucianism to invent cinematic horror. Think about that next time you watch Mulholland Drive. Drop a comment if you finally get what the Black Lodge is all about. We have tracked the Rosicrucians from anonymous German manuscript in 1614, which promised revolutionary political change and the destruction of the papacy, through the halls of Sir Francis Bacon's scientific enlightenment, and finally into the competitive, modernized marketplace of California mysticism. The story of the Rose Cross is the story of how a powerful, elusive idea, possibly conceived as a literary satire, accidentally laid the philosophical groundwork for the modern age of science and secret societies.
The movement was defined by the relentless pursuit of hidden knowledge, or gnosis. The Manifestos called for humanity to unlock the esoteric truths concealed from the masses. This human effort, the travel, the rituals, the study of ancient texts, is predicated on the idea that truth is something we must painstakingly uncover, often relying on our own strength and understanding. This journey provides a final philosophical point about the nature of wisdom itself. The Rosicrucians sought to bring the secrets in the darkness to light through human effort and carefully guarded tradition. But there is an alternative perspective, the belief that true ultimate wisdom is not something that can be earned or guarded by a select brotherhood, but is instead revealed by the divine. As a Christian, the underlying theme of this search for hidden truths reminds me that ultimate truth and wisdom are tied directly to God's nature, His goodness, His power, and His providence. We are commanded not to lean on our own understanding even when events appear disjointed or confusing, but to rely on Him. The power to reveal the deepest mysteries is not a secret held in an alchemist's tomb or a coded manuscript, but rests with the Creator who governs all things. This idea that the highest form of knowledge is not hidden from us, but rather revealed to us, is beautifully summarized in the context of the prophet Daniel, who gave thanks after God revealed a hidden mystery to him in a vision. Daniel chapter 2, verse 22. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. Okay, thanks for watching. Peace out. Goodbye, guys.